Hey, welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here with a new character review. Super excited to talk about Auron. He just came out this week. I've been meaning to do these reviews sooner, but I was really waiting to see the power creep and balance of the game with the new X jobs, as well as the changes to the vision cards where they got the element party buffs. I really wanted to see the shakeup of that before I kind of did some analysis. But now that I've kind of got a glimpse at things firsthand, super excited to talk about this unit as well as the other two, which I did character reviews on just now. And let's stop wasting time. Let's get into it. So I'll go through the character overview, my general thoughts, go over his stats and stat analysis, class and job overview, and then Esper, vision card, and weapon synergies per usual. That being said, brand new ice element user to the game, which we haven't had one in a hot minute, so really interesting, new addition to the cast. They made the legendary guardian job for him, but he's also a pugilist and a soldier. Really interesting combination of things there. We'll get into why. For the weapons, he wields a great sword, and then for equips, I actually had to do a hard double take when I first did this. Helm, cloth, and accessory. It's usually hat, cloth, and accessory. That's usually the thing, but no, it's literally helm. So platinum helm and the golden helm and some of those, it's different. It's unique. Where normally you get helms with heavy armor and hats with the cloths, but it's not the case for Auron. Other than that, move of 3, jump of 1, pretty standard movement abilities from that perspective. So, in terms of other resistances, I actually love these. It helps to his bulkiness, where, yes, 5% weak to pierce, but there's ways to hedge against that. 10% weak to strike, which is, it hasn't seen its true prevalence in the game yet, so although it's a weakness, you don't see it very often, so I'm not really afraid of it per se. But other than that, 10% for the other three, really popular types of slash, missile, and magic. 10% is a great jump-off point in terms of building resistance stored. For status effects, 50% to paralyze, as well as disable, and 10% to instant KO, which, kind of interesting there. So yeah, overall, good status resists, at least from the perspective of disable. General thoughts. He's a new tank buster DPS. That's basically what he is, because he can achieve an incredible amount of defensive penetration. That being said, he's also got a ton of offensive potency, so he's just a good DPS in general. Balanced overall resistances, as we just saw. He's got 6 defense and 10 SBR innately in the kit as well, so he starts off with some, in addition to the resistance, some good bulk. Incredibly versatile kit between jobs and buffs. We'll get to that soon. Good variety of counters, which I like for versatility. You don't often think of counters as part of a character kit, but he's definitely got some worth mentioning. And then incredible synergy with the current ice class, where you're talking about Gilgamesh and slashes this down, or Agrius and the regen ability, because he's also got regen. Lastwell with heavy slash attacks. So he pairs really well with what they have to offer, even if it's a little bit one-dimensional sometimes. So the stats overview, let's jump into it. So total evasion, it's not worth talking about per se. He is above average evasion, but he's not an evade unit by any means, and I wouldn't gear him to be so, unless you were just putting him in a comp to be a pack mule essentially for one of the vision cards. Agility wise, he's just below average, 58 versus 60, but so far I don't think it's that noticeable, to be honest. He's still relatively fast in the turn order of things. Total luck, he's got great luck stat, which is obviously going to help his accuracy, which we'll see in a second as well, because he's tied for the first most accurate character in the game. Not only that, so that's including a passive ability of his, but even if you didn't have it, his accuracy is this 157, which is super competitive at the top of the game. If you're curious about exactly what these stats mean and how they're calculated, I do have a accuracy and evasion guide below in the comments, as well as hopefully on the screen at the top, kind of explain the math behind this. But overall, super fucking accurate, and again, it's because he's got a really high luck stat, but his dexterity also super high compared to what the average is, and the dexterity is also going to hit with his critical hit rate. So, increased DPS output when you consider the extra crit rates as well. In terms of a class and job overview, some really interesting passives to pick from. So, it depends if you're going for more Tank Buster Auron or just good DPS Auron. Because the Tank Buster Auron, you're going to want defense penetration here. But again, that's only if it's a physical tank. If you're in a magic meta like we're seeing right now, and people are gearing for SBR instead of defense, well, you don't really need defense penetration when defensive stats are going to be so low. So there's a time and place for that. The other piece of it, it's how you want to build his attack stat. So obviously self-sacrifice is the most potent one, but you're giving up a lot of resistances potentially to do so. That being said, he is like net positive 10% on a bunch of them. So it stands to reason that you could probably, give up 8%. And not be terribly hurt by it at the offset for extra offensive potency. That being said, Warrior Spirit, 24% attack is nothing to sneeze at. That's still a good buff. Guide to the Story is a good one too, just because it gives him extra agility. And this Flurry enhancement, this is the one that really buffs up the accuracy to the top of the game. So I don't really think you need it, to be honest. But what you're going to decide on, Flurry enhancement or Guide of the Story, is dependent upon what counter ability you want, because both of these upgrade either one of his counter skills. So getting into that, his regular ability, it's very creative. It's called Counter, is the counter ability. It's a defensive break. So when you talk about, again, but like tank busting, if you're going for tank busting Auron, Counter's a great fucking ability, because even though the range is relatively short, tanks are normally relatively short range. So if he's getting in their face and he's getting one of these, defensive breaks off, it's just going to cleave right through the enemy defense. And obviously it's the chance to counter damage of 50% is a really high chance to proc. So really great ability. Flurry counter, kind of the same idea. It's a double hit, and it's a strike damage. So again, it depends on what kind of comp you're going against, what kind of tanks you're seeing. This also has a place where, like, potentially if you're using him as a monk, he could chain with himself for strike attacks, but also potentially hit some weaknesses of enemies, like if you're going against, I don't know, not Rain, because he's a magic tank, but you get the idea. Counter slash, use one of these two instead. In terms of the actual jobs, so these jobs, there's a ton that I very much appreciate here. So another way is an accuracy boost, again, so you don't really need it necessarily in the passive. Buffs his critical rate as well, so super, super potent from that perspective. The one thing about his job, though, it is a little bit limited in terms of, like, attack, where normally you get to see more of these diamond shaped, and you can see all of the the attack patterns here are all like cross shaped for the most part. So he does struggle a smidge getting in position for using some of these attacks, but on the current guild map, which is so small and the height is relatively easy going, he has no problem currently. But once you start getting to more like elevations and like weird angles, he might struggle a little bit more. Anyways, I was kind of misspeaking. It's not another way. It's Entrust the Future. So not only is it the accuracy and the critical rate, but increased defense penetration of 20 as well. So if you're talking about like tank busting, he's got the passive of 40. Add this for 20 on Entrust the Future, and then have a defensive break. And I believe his Trust Mastery. Well, I'm skipping ahead here. No, it's not. Either way, he can cleave through defense, no problem. We'll see why. Banishing Blade. Awesome, because it's a guaranteed chance to hit. So anytime a character has that in their kit, it makes them really versatile in terms of where you can put them against evade units. Dragon Fang is great. Immobilize isn't the strongest overall status effect, but it really is like only AoE ability, so this is a good ability just for that sake. God Killer is awesome. Anytime you can break a barrier, particularly like a physical one, is super valuable. So it's not just the sniper class that can break barriers now, he can do it as well. And again, it's only physical barriers, so keep that in mind. But other than that, like, if you upgrade it to Heaven's Fall, which you should be, not only does it increase... it just increases the slash attack. Yeah, so increased slash attack of 20 is huge for damage output overall. So he's got that kind of self-buff. And then Crouching Dragon, kind of the same idea here, where another source of status effect. It is fairly strong at 200%, and a little bit limited by the range, but 28 AP is relatively cheap for an ability like this, so it's got its place. In terms of the sub-job, I actually do like this sub-job as well. So he's got an attack slash magic break on one of them, which, again, very, very valuable just when it comes to saying, maybe cut down Yuna's magic output because you're breaking her magic stat a little bit, or, going against an offensive team and you can break down their attack stats. But Glass to the Deceased, super valuable too in terms of granting regen to AoE, particularly when you're going next to someone like Agrius, where, maybe you had her doing regen in the past, like, now if you put him next to her, like, he can do it instead. So regen is kind of an underrated ability here as it pertains to, like, survivability and tankiness. So this is a good sub job, it really is. But I like the other two as well, particularly Pugilist. So the same idea, anytime you can give a character two types of attacks, so he's got Slash on the main job and Strike on the sub job, I like the Pugilist job, don't get me wrong. The reason why I have not liked it in the past is because of Raldor and Winter Venera, it's their main job. And because it's their main job, it makes them super limited to what you can potentially do in terms of the rest of their abilities. This job is extremely short ranged, like stupidly short ranged, to the point that like I almost hate the job for it. But because it's not his main job, and his main job is so strong on its own, yeah, Pugilist is actually really good here. And that like shifting strike can help his movement ability a little bit. Spirit Breaker obviously is great for like brawl and getting stronger over time. Pugilistic Mastery, same idea. It gives him defense penetration of 20, increases strike attack. So like you have two different ways to potentially take out enemies. So the strike attack and slash attack is really valuable on a kit like this. I've been using Pugilist a lot, to be honest, and it's had some great value. The Soldier sub job, again, not a bad one. The big demerit I've always had on the Soldier sub job is that you use your own HP to do with a high amount of damage output. And in my opinion, unless you have like a healer babysitting you, in which case it's kind of like a 2v3, if you know what I mean, because you're essentially making your healer go into heal bot mode. The fact that he can like pair with someone like Agrius as a popular synergy where you can get regen or something, or, you know, the HP loss isn't as punishing as it might normally be. But overall, not my favorite job on him, but it's good. It's still so hard hitting. 225 and 235 for modifiers that he's gonna, you know, really fuck shit up if you want to put one or two of these abilities on. In terms of the limit break, really great one. Again, another source of defense penetration here, where he can easily hit 100 defense penetration, which essentially means that no matter how much defense they have, you just cleave right through it. So fucking incredible. It's why such a good tank buster. But that being said, it is fairly expensive. And it does have good AoE, and it is potent, don't get me wrong, but I have seen some battles where like he blows this kind of early, and it's just not that useful in a magic meta because he doesn't need defense penetration. So there's like you have to, you know, ask yourself, like, do I really want to spend 58 AP for this ability and get defense penetration that means nothing? Or would I rather use like my normal abilities like 2 or 3 times? So this is a great limit break. Probably just not going to use it right now all that much. In terms of the TMR, this is a good TMR. It's not my favorite. It does have a fair amount of HP, and it's got good defense and crit avoid, obviously. So from an armor perspective, it's not that bad. I just think it's a smidge niche because Confusion and Petrify as status effects obviously like are in the game, but they're just not everywhere in the game. So you're not going to get the same benefit out of this TMR in every battle that you approach as you would some of the other TMRs. So really good. And the increased attack of 30 to 50%, depending if you level it, is also good. But like, I don't know, there's other sources of attack up that I don't know if you want to waste your TMR ability on it. And it's only one cast, so it could be better. The master ability, increased SPR of 10. So the reason why I like Auron a lot right now in the magic meta is that he survives relatively well against magic. So like, go back to the, oh my god, we're going way back here. 10% resistance to magic innately, and he's got 10 SPR in the mastery on top of the 6 SPR in his kit, so he's at 16 SPR. It makes it super easy for him to get like magic resistant up, you know, fairly well, and he survives a lot longer than you would expect against some of these heavy hitting magic units. And obviously, like, if they're weak to slash or weak to strike, he's got both. So that's why I've liked using him. In terms of vision card synergies, kind of straightforward because, again, he's really a slash-heavy unit. Fenrir is probably my favorite, if only because, again, an external 20% magic resist, which you just talked about, you know, how important that is. 4 agility, which he's going to want because you saw he's a little bit slower than average. Increase HP 10% to bulk him up. But the party effect of this is ice units get 50% attack increase. So that's why I'm kind of like on the limit on the TMR ability because he has like a fair amount of other sources of attack up, this being one of them, where he's just going to be bulkier, harder hitting, more resistance. Absolutely fucking amazing card on him. Odin, kind of the same idea. So the human killer, attack resistance of 20 is very valuable, and then ice units get an additional 25 accuracy. So he doesn't need the accuracy per se. Doesn't hurt. And obviously the teammates are going to appreciate it by and large, because not everyone is as accurate as he is. Aegion, another awesome choice, where slashes his penetration when you're talking about, you know, cleaving through enemy resistances, as well as slash attack 25. The accuracy, again, he doesn't need it, but the party certainly can benefit from it. And dexterity of 28 will help his crit rate, which, more damage, that's great. And then Exorcist, actually, he is included on everything. So he gets the defense penetration of 12, the slash resist penetration of 35, and he gets this ability, the triple hit of you know, 170 and the decrease evasion, so AP of 20 as well. So Exorcist, awesome fucking card, again, for the same reasons of like tank busting potentially, where defense penetration and slash resist penetration, which is only going to help him be more offensively potent. So really good card. There's a bunch of other good cards, obviously, too, depending on how you want to use them. But these really like the slash-oriented ones, so I have them here. In terms of the Esper Synergies, kind of the same idea. There's like a lot of versatility. You know, if you're going for like slash attack up, Odin's a great choice because he's super fast, which Auron would appreciate, you know, the extra AGI. But it's also got the human killer and the slash attack and some resists, depending on how you want to build them, so that's valuable. Golem, you know, makes Auron a little more survivable. It does slow him down significantly, but still has human killer and gives him defense, so it kind of rounds him out where he's got a lot of SPR, but now you can give him some defense. Marlboro, great choice here. I've recently fallen in love with Marlboro for anyone that's a pugilist class because it has an innate 15% magic resist, so that's going to help in the magic meta. In terms of agility of 13, could be better, could be worse, but it's got strike attack up, so if you're making that pugilist sub job, really valuable for that extra damage. Two-headed dragon, also same idea, a little bit on the slower side, but overall, amazing attack stat here. Slash attack 15, attack of 20%. You know, overall, really offensively potent character. It just depends on how fast you want your Auron to be and what you're using externally to make him do so. You know, he's a great candidate for Zizabels, which does have, you know, agility on it. So you can usually trade off some of that with an Esper. And then Aegion, per usual, in every review. Pierce assist, magic resist, slash attack up. It's so versatile. Good agility, particularly when you're comparing, like, what I have here for examples. Overall, really, really great. You know, Esper, particularly because if you are going to see Tidus coming to prominence, 10% water resistance as well, so don't count that out. Weapon optimization. So Shimmering Blade, might as well just call it the Auron sword because he's the only one that's ever going to put the sword on. And to be fair, it should be this sword. So the Rune Blade and Golden Blade are also like not bad options. They're not. How can I say this? Forget the Rune Blade for a second. If you're looking at just Shimmering Blade and Golden Blade, so Shimmering Blade technically has way more in the way of modifiers, like extra 30. And if you're confused again on what exactly modifiers do to the equation, I have links below for my damage calculation video. Hopefully a link above as well. But yeah, extra 30 on the modifier is enormous. Even though the attack stat isn't as high as the Golden Blade, the modifier makes up for it in terms of damage, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But even the critical build is super valuable to get that critical rate up. Rune Blade's not bad. It's obviously niched if you're going against a slash comp, because if you're not gearing against slash assist, you might as well just go Shimmering Blade or Golden Blade. But just looking at a damage example here, so I gave Auron this setup that you see on the left, and I just changed the weapon on both. So if you give him the Golden Blade, yes. So I did Golden Blade, I did the crit build of the Shimmering Blade, so only 128 attack versus 226, so 128 versus 226. You ask yourself, like, how valuable is that extra modifier of 30? Well, we're going to find out. So the Golden Blade, that's his total attack stat. If he does Shooting Star, which is his super basic attack, the damage output ends up being 1700, okay? And you can see the modifiers are kind of in this middle box here. So Shimmering Blade, he has a lower attack, you know, by about 100, but he does 200 more damage because the modifier of 0.3 is just that important. And since we're talking about the critical build, if he lands a crit, it's an extra 25 in the modifier. You're talking an extra 500 damage done, even though the Golden Blade has 100 more attack on it. So really important example here, and this is the same for the Crouching Dragon ability. It's a higher modifier, but still the idea is the same, where the Golden Blade, it just gets outpaced by both of these because of not only the modifier, but the increased chance to proc critical hits. So something to keep in mind. I personally prefer the crit build for that Shimmering Blade. And that's Auron in a nutshell. So you can see, you know, really awesome versatility, not only just between like being a tank buster, but being just like a genuinely awesome DPS as well. Particularly because he is like bulky enough against different types where you can gear him for magic, for missile resist, for slash resist, where he's going to be super versatile in going against a bunch of comps in an ice cast that is relatively strong. It's really just a matter of, you know, what kind of healers you can put with them and who you want doing the main tanking ability, if you will, because he doesn't have any hate generation. He really is a pure DPS in that standpoint. So that's it overall. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Per usual, feel free to leave tips, critiques, suggestions. Hopefully if you've pulled for them, you're having fun using them, and looking forward to doing some more content for you all soon.